remember. Online events bring the world together, and the replays just go on forever.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of Your Voice, Your Vision, Your Stage. My guest today, I have an audio clip queued up. Let's play it, and then let's jump into this conversation. My guest today is Robert Tettero, a leading expert in stress and burnout recovery whose work spans across North America and Europe. Robert offers tailored coaching, seminars, and communication training designed to help professionals navigate stress, reclaim purpose, and prevent burnout before it starts. His approach is rooted in identifying the root cause of stress and delivering practical, sustainable solutions that empower individuals to thrive and not just survive. Welcome to the show, Robert. Hey, Robert, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure and a delight to have you as my guest. Listen, I can't tell you how much engagement I've been seeing and experiencing. We have a fabulous master teacher who touches on a subject matter that many of us either fail to talk about or talk about it after something has happened dramatically. Before we jump in, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. Why don't you share with our community who you are and the value that you bring to those that you serve?
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Really great to connect with you and your audience. My name is Robert, and I say my name very consciously because if I say I am Robert, then I have to deal with the guy who had all these problems and challenges and God knows what. And that's just a label. But for the purpose of this evening, yes, I am Robert. I am Dutch Indonesian. I consider myself world citizen because I was raised throughout the whole world, actually. And I studied business. I was coming out of college. I started working on multi-billion-dollar projects, and I was completely unhappy. So I didn't know what else to do. And that was actually when my life really started. And I took a real deep dive. I disappeared from the world for 7 years, and I came back into the business world through a back door, but on my terms. And I promised myself I wouldn't come back into the world until I had found out these three vital questions that I was in search of. And that was, who am I? What was I meant to be doing in this world? And where am I going when I drop the body? And I actually found an answer to all these questions. And I came back into the world and wanted to share my experience of my own personal search, which I've actually diluted into a book. 35 years of my life, and want to inspire entrepreneurs, business owners, and everyone basically that there is more than meets the eye, and to inspire them to do inner work as well.
That is fantastic. We have people joining us, listening to us live. I want to take a moment to thank those who are here with us, listening both live and on replay. Welcome. If you have questions that you'd like to ask Robert, please drop them in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know if you have any questions. There are a few questions that were dropped in there prior to us going live that I will bring up throughout the conversation. But before we do that, I do want to kick us off with our first question. And let's turn off this overlay. All right. Your work focuses on stress and burnout recovery. Now, it says high performing professionals, but I would imagine any professional who's experiencing burnout and reaches out, that these are people that you would be willing and able to support and help. What inspired you to specialize in this space?
Well, that's a good one. I always pick probably the most difficult thing. I'm always, I'm always going for the challenge in life. I mean, you try and convince people that believe that they thrive under pressure, that they're going the wrong way. Try and convince them because they believe they're doing good and they're thriving under pressure. I'm like, that's a myth. So I took that on as a challenge. And over the 35 years that I've been dealing with burnout people, well, most of them I had warned when they just came for individual sessions, and I warned them, but they just didn't identify with what I was talking about. But then 2 years later, they come knocking on my door in a full-scale burnout, which is interesting. And when I asked them, how did it get to that? They literally don't know.
Yeah,
Which
I
really
totally agree. I totally agree. You can be entrenched in full burnout mode and not know that you're in burnout because you're just so busy spinning your wheels, and you're so busy, and you feel that being busy, that you're accomplishing something, and it turns out that you're not. You're just burning the candle at both ends. And funny enough, if you don't pick up on the clues and the cues, your body will shut you down. It will send you signals. It will tell you, hey, here's some cautionary signs. And if you don't pick up on those, you have a complete burnout, and the body by design shuts you down and tells you, okay, now it's time to recover, replenish, whatever it is that you need. You haven't been able to do it yourself. We're going to help you, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing is that they might be aware of the signs. At some point, they start becoming aware because they fall into this energy trap. They constantly feel tired. They have sleepless nights. Even if they have their 8 hours sleep, they wake up tired in the morning. And yet they can't stop. And this is the interesting part, because their brain is wiring and firing this program 24/7 along your whole career. So even if you want to stop, your body is still being pushed by that very way you were conditioned. I mean, if you had a father that was working hard and you said, well, I'm going to, I want to surpass even my father, and that becomes sort of your whole life mission. Or you come from a poor family and you said to yourself, I want to get out of this situation. At some point, they lose touch with what is really important.
Well, here's an interesting point, and I want to pick up on what you just said, that whole cultural difference. Now, you've worked across Europe, U.S., North America. Are there actual cultural differences in how burnout is understood and addressed?
Um,
And
well,
the reason the reason I ask is I'm a European descendant, born in Portugal, first generation immigrant, come to this country, dad and mom working hard, to your point. And that's what we grew up knowing, that working hard is a key or path to success. And, mom and dad, there's a lot of sweat equity that went into putting us through our academic years, and they expect the best of us. And now we're in a position to deliver in a fashion not to disappoint. And then we get overwhelmed. So we have to balance family, and then we have to balance the corporate culture that we know in Western society. And before you know it, you're in that rhythm, and you could be starting to burn out at a very, very young age and not even know it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I learned because I never felt part of this world in the first place, and later in my life, I understood that it had many advantages because I had learned how to just observe. I became the witness, and I saw my father in a diplomatic career, break himself. I was like, I'm not going down that road. I saw my brother going to a full-scale burnout, and it took him like, under my guidance, took him like 2 years to completely get out of. That's how, extreme he fell into that energy trap. So I just said, I'm not going to go there. So I stepped out of the business world, which wasn't the best thing to do, but I had no other idea of what way I was then supposed to do this. If going into the business world meant working your A off, ASS off, I wasn't willing to do that. So, I really had to do a very deep soul search and a sort of a vision quest of 7 years to figure that one out.
So
And
let's.
talking about, I think it isn't cultural dependent. I think it's just the way we are wired in general. I think it holds true for everybody. It depends how you were conditioned and what's driving you, but just generally speaking, this is just a cultural conditioning. We're all told, you got to get your degree, work hard, climb the corporate ladder, and that's old school. What climb the corporate ladder? By the time you get up there, you're completely burned out. I mean, I've worked with millionaires and billionaires that got up into the highest rung of the corporate ladder, and they can't even enjoy the goods, because of a hernia, that they can't even get on the motorbike they had just bought. Seriously. And
Yeah,
it's like, well, what's that? What was that all for?
I totally.
But by and large, the way they treated was very much misunderstood. And I'm very conservative in the way they have, dealt with burnout. Very much so, because for one, I don't try to label anybody. I need to look at everything from a holistic point of view, and not just work on a symptomatic level, psychosomatic, you know, psycho-emotional. People lose their emotional intelligence. It has so many deep-rooted consequences that we're not even aware of. But they risk losing everything.
So you also speak about the importance of addressing the root causes of these stresses that cause people to burn out. What are some of the common ones for those who are listening both live as well as on replay? What should people be looking out for in the workplace, or perhaps not even in the workplace, just in general?
Well, in general, I am real adamant uh, when it comes to changing the business culture as a whole. Yeah, when I was working as a management consultant, well, and still today, I hear it constantly. It's all about more, more, and more. And then when I hear big corporations say we lost so many, million this year, on what are you basing this? You didn't lose anything, you know. So I think the corporate climate is changing, and what is wonderful is one of the tools that I actually use to support people in this transformation is conscious energy breathing, also known as breath work. And I have sort of done a small marketing research and called all the people in the business world that I've guided in the past 30 years. And I asked them that question. So tell me, in everything that I've done for you, what was the best that really helped you out of the mess? And every single one of them said it was the breathing sessions, the breathing meditations, and all the different aspects of it, which I thought was very interesting because I'm very much uh, trying to get corporations to integrate like breath work, conscious energy breathing in their business. And that is absolutely fantastic because I'll tell you what, when it comes to breathing, breathing is a way to bring into balance the emotional, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual bodies. So it's really about uniting. But now think about this. That's why I say, by and large, there never is any team spirit because everybody's just gravitating in their own world. But when you get a group of executives breathing together, what happens is they start tuning in on that same frequency. No words necessary. All of a sudden, it's like you know, top achieving sporters. They understand, right? They free themselves from the mind and they enter like this very particular space, which they call the zone, right? They access this higher intelligence that brings them in the exact perfect place where the ball is perfectly played, where you head the ball into the goal at the perfect moment. And then what do? They're like, and they look up in the air, right? So what are they contributing their goal to? It's what I call the third force. And so I not only get them off the burnout, eliminate stress and any form of overwhelm, because once you recognize the signs, once you've already healed a large part of what's going on, and you understand what the driving force was behind what you were doing, you'll recognize the signs immediately. And then your mind will kick in and go, oh, okay, the old Robert would have now done this and that and that. But now you just sit still and you observe. And it's just a climate. When you just sit still, the wheel keeps turning. The clouds pass by. The sun shines at some point again. And then all of a sudden it's just about don't move. Don't let that program, govern you. So I really love what I do because I bring into perspective things that they've actually never thought of. Like, oh, I never thought of it this way. And that's just remarkable.
So here's a question for you. After a what I would call a great corporate career, that whole corporate ladder analogy, that is something that many of us chase. And you mentioned that you try to bring this into corporate culture. And I envision this, from my experience, something that you do in terms of support as being an annual team building event, right? And it's something that perhaps needs to be more than just a team building activity. Hey, let's do some breathing exercises. Robert's going to spend the day with us, and then it's forgotten. It was a one-off. It was an event that happened that one day. How do you sustain that? Because
It's good question. Good question, because I don't go for quick fixes. When somebody wants to work with me, I have an extensive program, and I don't go for the let's do one session. I have various programs, but it's like in my book I write about finding your true religion with a capital R, not a dogma, but find something that will improve your life and bite into it and don't let go because you are dependent on that of becoming the better version of yourself, right? Whatever we follow and decide to follow, they don't care. You follow, don't follow, whatever. They're not dependent on us, but we are dependent on it. And so I just did a corporate training for a big tech company here in Holland. I had about 26 people. And I explained to them about the importance of the breath, actually. And it's a very interesting, very far-reaching topic. I mean, The breath is ancient. It's been used in all forms of meditation, all forms of yoga, all forms of the martial arts, you name it, yoga practices. So at some point, one of the guys is like, can we do something now? And I'm like, are there any more doers? Any more doers? And everybody's, yeah. I said, you guys, stop doing. How about coming back into your beingness? Stop doing, start moving from a place of, of connectedness in yourself, more purpose driven, soul aligned. And it's like, not woo woo. It's a very practical matter. And then I show them a breathing practice that they can use for themselves at home. And I also give them, and I would advise everybody that's listening to this live podcast at this moment or show, is observe your breath for the next year and see what you will learn. But we'll forget tomorrow, right? We're just too busy. But see if you can do it. All right, start with the day. If you can only do 5 minutes a day, just take 5 minutes time of observing your breath, and try and stretch that out, becoming more aware. Because it is about becoming conscious. We drive from A to B and we're at our work, and then we wonder, where was I during the drive? If I wasn't aware where I wasn't aware of the cars that I overtook, was I in my body at all? Where was I? Most people are often not even in their body.
Yeah, we become
So,
oblivious to the environment that we find ourselves in. And, often some people might refer to it as daydreaming, but when you're
yeah,
not in that zone, where are you?
yeah, exactly. And it's exactly that. And so uh, I have them breathe. And of course, and I love it when there are skeptics in the group, because this is something that works for everybody. And the most amazing responses, it's like, oh my God, I really didn't expect this. Memories that surface that they thought just had no influence over themselves anymore at all. Some people were sweating profusely, like they were running a marathon. And after I asked them to share, it's like, oh my God, it was like running a marathon. Well, it's not because of the breathing. It's because the breath is only showing you, it's mirroring the way you are operating in your life. You're constantly, every single day, running this marathon. Here, you guys, first thing you said, can we do something now? Right? And they all get it, because, it's tiresome, but they're just not conscious of it. So it's not the breath that's doing this. It's just bringing up the strenuous mode that you're constantly moving forth in. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
So,
And I am still today, after 35 years, I'm like, everybody needs to regain their natural breathing again, which, by the way, for most of us has been ruined during our birth. The first breath we ever took was a gasping for air, because they either cut the umbilical cord too soon, hung us upside down, slapped us on our butt, or if our lungs were still full of the amniotic fluid, we were choking, they stick a tube down our throat to get the amniotic fluid out of our lungs. And the first breath is usually,
big gasp.
yeah, welcome to the world. And everything related to lack is connected to that one gasp when you didn't have enough air. But it translates later in your life. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough love. I don't have enough support. I don't have enough ideas. I don't know what to do. It's bizarre, but this is scientifically researched by the Foundation of Prenatal and Perinatal Psychology and Health. Very interesting.
So may or may not be a great segue, but let's talk about or jump into burnout and moving from burnout to renewed purpose. Now, you start with breathing. Is there anything else that you would add that adds and supports this transformation?
Yeah, yeah. I want to create a complete new foundation. And they have to be willing to let go, which is a difficult one, to let go of who they think they are and the world is. And I would like to inspire them to embrace change, the unknown. You've done it this way all your life, and your ego has convinced you that that's the only way. It's going to take a leap of faith to say, oh, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop what I'm doing, just dropping it. And whether I am right or wrong is not of any importance. But why don't you just open yourself up to new possibilities? I always say to everybody, don't believe a word I say. You need to experience it yourself. It has to resonate with you at a deep level. And then you can drop whatever you think, you know, you don't need, and take on whatever you can use, that which can serve you. So that way, I don't impose my ideas on people, but it's a self-discovery. It's something they have to discover for themselves, but it does require, I am willing to drop the old and to go into the unknown. And it brings about a lot of insecurity and even confusion, because you're letting go of what was known and you don't know where it's going to lead. But I do tell them, I guarantee you, and I guarantee you, follow this road and you will achieve stress-free success. But you have to take this leap of faith. You're going to have to trust somebody, because these are usually high achievers that didn't ever trust anybody. They only trust themselves. If I don't do it, who's going to do it? Which is another factor that can lead to burnout.
So here's a fascinating, and I like how this conversation is just kind of flowing, because you and I haven't rehearsed this, and I prefer not to rehearse. I like to keep it conversational.
Yeah.
I love to keep it flowing without feeling scripted. So I've made the decision to jump into the unknown. Today, I help professionals and businesses create live stream experiences, bring their voices to a live stream. Many professionals today are now building their personal brands through live streams and through public content. Now, taking what you just shared with us, there's a lot of people who struggle to jump into the unknown and the uncertainty. And I can't imagine it being any easier jumping in front of a hot mic and just bringing your vulnerable self to a space that perhaps is overwhelming for some of us. How do we protect people's mental health while they're trying to stay visible and make a difference?
That's a good one. How can we protect their mental health?
Yeah.
While maintaining visibility, correct?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. What is needed, like I said, a new foundation. So I do create new rules. I have something called the golden rules, a whole list of golden rules. I mean, if you would only apply these golden rules, you're good to go. You're good to go. And then I have these universal principles. When you understand these universal principles that we're all subject to, again, it gives you a new reference point. So as we're going into the unknown, I do still help them anchor, that they don't feel they're completely lost in space. We are following a very determined route, and I am guaranteeing you will get out of this. The book that I wrote is called Transcending the Ordinary. a roadmap to ultimate freedom, happiness, and success. And it's pretty pretentious to say, if you follow what I'm telling you in this book, you will achieve ultimate freedom, happiness, and success. But I am absolutely 100% convinced of that. And everybody, again, it might sound pretty arrogant, but I don't want to say 100%, but I have a very high percentage of success rate. That's why I can say I can guarantee you this, but there are general rules you need to follow. And so that's how I can help them maintain that stability in the midst of the confusion, which I think is important because, yes, you're right. When we have to drop our self image that we've been so busy constructing most of our lives and learning how to operate from that self image, and now all of a sudden you're asked to drop it, right? The ego isn't going to let go that willingly. It's like, excuse me, you're telling me that I should just drop it all? Oh, I don't think so. And the ego will let you do some work. That's why, another thing, you have to continuously renegotiate your commitment because the ego is very clever. It's sort of like the golem. It'll let you go for a while, and at some point, it'll come back through a back door. Oh, and you thought you got somewhere? Come on, give it up. You didn't get anywhere. You're still struggling with the same old. It's amazing.
But
those are just new traps.
Well, let's talk about those traps. So, continuing in this is my last self-serving question, and then we'll move back to the questions that came in through the community. So, continuing with this whole live stream experience that I'm helping others get comfortable with and getting in front of their audience. Now, whether it's live streams or it could be another area of expertise that we can be working on, do you find that when people jump into that uncomfortable zone, that for a short period of time or perhaps a long period of time, does it become part of the problem, the stress, or does it become part of the solution?
It's part of the solution. You look way back when, high school, we had proclamations, even playing in a band, how often I messed up because I was just so stressed and nervous. And funny enough, all throughout my life, what have I always been gravitating toward? Talking in front of groups, so unconsciously, some part of me was trying to heal that anyway, so, and this is another thing, by the way, I think what you're doing is really fantastic because this is an amazing opportunity for people to get out there and to take it on. But it's also about maintaining or being able to handle the energy. So what I've learned to do is just to pause. Just hold the space. Don't occupy it by trying to cut some jokes or filling it all up. And when you lose your momentum or you lose your train of thought, just pause a moment. You can even ask, "Oh, America, what was I just saying?" Right? And in those moments also, just taking a moment to breathe, because it's just the intensity of the energy that's causing the trauma. I'm calling it a trauma because it's only an old response of something that you haven't dealt with in the past, which every single time you're in the same sort of a situation, it gets reactivated again. So when you just take those moments to take these deep belly breaths and just take that moment and own that space, and the moment you move from your center, you can never go wrong. And by the way, what does it matter if you goof it up, mess it up? Nothing wrong with that either.
Let me ask a question around those who suffer or believe that they suffer from imposter syndrome. So you get you get personalities and personas that burn out from working excessively or whether through overthinking or what have you. But then you have those who want to manifest an idea, but are held back because this imposter syndrome is holding them back. I may not be good enough. I may not be ready, to the point where they get all stressed and they burn out before they even do anything.
Right.
Can you help people in those positions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I help them uncover these underlying thoughts that are causing the self-sabotage or thinking they're not good enough. Uh, it's just a thought. It is a thought. And you're identifying with that thought. I always say, look, if you do your best, then your best is good enough under those conditions. We all start somewhere at some point in time. So who are you measuring up against? Well, very often our reference points were our parents. Say you had a successful father and or always, neglected you or downplayed you, where that very thought was ingrained, thinking you weren't good enough. So when you put that into perspective, you can help them make a huge quantum leap into that new version of yourself. Because the truth is, it's not the truth. It's not the truth. It's just the thought that you're identifying with. It's not the truth that you wouldn't be good enough, that you wouldn't be worthy of love, that you weren't, right for whatever it is you're chasing after. So, mindset strategies is also a big part of the work. I need to get people to change their minds. And that's another thing. When people do come to me, I'm like, you're going to have to just take at face value what I am offering you, because I am not going into a discussion with anybody whatsoever, because it's just a battle of mental minds. I'm not going to sit there playing tennis with you while you're trying to win the game. If you want anything from me, you're going to just have to open up, empty yourself, and just allow new ideas, contemplate new ideas. And, that's the difficulty, because people, are so adamant of defending their belief. And then we won't get anywhere. So I need to help them to change their mind. Well, your belief didn't get you very far, otherwise you wouldn't be in this predicament. So why don't we let it go for a while? I'm not saying to give it up, but let it go for a while and see if it works. But, I bestow I bestow trust in people. I can truly say that. And everybody that's ever come to me, we're able to let go and to allow this processing, because again, the same goes for me, by the way. If there's anything I want from anybody else, I say to myself, shut up. If I hear my brain going, and wanting to intercede, I'm like, stop, quiet, don't move. Whether I like what they're saying or not is not of the essence. If I don't like what they're saying and I'm activated by it, great, go inside and see what's being triggered there. Just another lesson to learn. Why can't I stay open just to listen and look at this issue from a different perspective?
Yeah, listening is important, and knowing when to say something versus when not to say something. I've been in roles where handling customer escalations were part of my accountabilities, and sometimes I'd have customers stop and say, "Are you still there?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm giving you the opportunity to share with me what it is that you need to get off your chest, what it is that you need to share in order for me to try to help you. And if I speak over you, then this isn't going to work." And it puts it puts people in a comfortable place. Like, all right, so that silence wasn't, you know, me ignoring someone. That silence was me observing and giving that person the opportunity to have their voice and their message heard. To your point, this isn't a tennis match that we're trying to win. This is about getting things done, and there's different ways and systematic ways, and listening is one of the key players of my game. And I totally agree and support what you just said. It's thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, not interjecting is actually giving them the respect to be able to say whatever, like you said, is on their chest without making them wrong about it. It's like, okay, I hear you, right? That's all that needs to be said, because very often we just want to be heard.
That's right. And sometimes, you know, with good intention, people get into that mindset. It's like just agreeing with them as others are talking. It's like, yes, okay, I understand. But don't say you understand when truly you don't understand where that person is coming from, where they are in that moment in time. We're taught in the corporate environment and landscape to have that mindset of empathy. Agree with the customer, agree with what they're saying, just to kind of break the ice and put them at ease. I've seen that backfire.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't understand. Don't tell me that you understand, because if you did, we probably wouldn't be in this discussion at this moment.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely true.
why don't we jump into some of the comments that were dropped in the feed? And there were some questions that were posed, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to answer them. So let's hide this. So we have some members who might be members of your community or members of my community who were eager to attend but may not be able to catch us live. Sue is one of those people. She's going to see if she could make it here, but would love to hear more about Robert's approach to helping manage stress while still showing up with energy and purpose. So how do you show up? This is a fabulous question. How do you show up with energy when sometimes energy just, it isn't there?
Well, again, why is the energy not there? We need to get to the root. There's something going on. I call it the energy trap. And it just means that we're expending a lot of energy to things that don't matter at all. That just don't matter. And the truth is, when I'm doing something that I love, when I'm really coming from a place of passion, it's just going to provide so much energy. You know, I can really go on straight through the night. I mean, for my shamanic practice, we do ceremony. We go on for like 36 hours and only sleep like, two days later. It's like body mastery. When I hear people, oh, I feel terrible, I didn't get my, go home and get your sleep, man, because otherwise you're not going to be much fun. But when we're doing things that we love to do, you just get so much energy. We have an infinite, source that we can source from. That's why I decided to call my company Life Source, Mana Life Source, because when we're sourcing, you'll always have enough energy for everything, every single aspect of your life, be it family, this morning I caught myself saying, oh, I was asked, can you walk the dog and feed it? And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, I don't have time for that. I just had to laugh about myself. It's like, where did that come from, And it's just because I wanted to get behind the computer and start, but it's like, again, that's the old Robert. And I'm like, okay, just wind down. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything. And I'd love to be with my dog. And I take him out,
Now
it's because it's a program that's running us. So again, stop to think. There's already something going on if you're showing up somewhere and don't have enough energy. I've worked with a lot of people. When it came down to it, they had already been thinking for quite a while of quitting their job. Right? Sometimes I have somebody call me. It's like, I'd like your advice. I don't usually give advice, but what can I do for you? I'm feeling really terrible at my work, this and that. And I'm like, well, quit your job. They're like, I knew you were going to say that. Well, are you going to follow up on what I'm telling you? Otherwise, why call me? But it's the truth. So many people aren't happy where they are and keep on going. And believe me, that is a complete energy drain.
I believe it.
Complete.
I wouldn't say that I've mastered it, because there's just so much we can do to self-improve. But
Absolutely.
I've embraced the mindset of, not letting things I can't control or influence rent space in my head. And it drives my fiance crazy. It drives some of my family members and friends crazy. It's like, how can you just shrug stuff off and not let it bother you? It's like, because there's nothing I can do. I can burn myself out trying to solve something that will never be able to change,
Right.
or that I have zero influence in. So why am I going to consume myself
Right.
over something that I can't change?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, we do have influence over it by not reacting. And the moment you don't react, what actually happens is the problem you thought you had dissolves. Because when we go into resistance, right? Whatever you resist will persist. Oh, I don't want this anymore. Oh, this is so bothersome. Well, what am I doing? I'm giving that what I don't want more energy, whereby it's going to create even more of what I don't want on my plate. But we do have influence over it by, in fact, just focusing on that what we do want. We do have factors that we can control, and that are your moods, the very climate changes in yourself. Know thyself. It really means discovering all the different climates in you. And yeah, sometimes I can use a fainted anger if it if I can achieve what I need to achieve with that. It's just energy in motion. I'm not really angry, but I can use the energy of it. So we can influence it, but on the other hand, if we let go, then things just start flowing naturally. In Greece, they have a saying: the more a person plans, the louder God laughs. I love that. And I see that with a lot of people that always need to plan and always have to have everything, fixed to the T. When things go wrong, they get very upset. They get very upset.
Yeah.
And I always say, when you've done your best, when you focused on the things that you wanted, but they don't turn out the way you wanted it, if you've done whatever you thought was necessary to do, then you can also trust that there is something better, right, waiting for you, in store for you.
Beautiful.
So then you can just let go of whatever wasn't working there and choose the path of least resistance. And every single time, something more beautiful, something more powerful, something with even better, outcome just shows up on your path.
Yeah. So in the corporate culture, people call that pivoting, would they not? You pivot, you make a plan, it doesn't work, you pivot and you try something else. Yet we find it difficult to pivot in our own personal lives. We tend to hold on to things longer than we should, in hopes that we can repair, we can improve, and we can change, when the best change is just to let go, recognize, reflect on what you're letting go, and start fresh, and start with new ideas and new perceptions.
Yeah. This woman, I don't know if she's still in the back, Elizabeth Kearney, a wonderful woman. And that's, what grace at 85 years still to call me up and ask if I could, guide her through the mess that she's, the challenges she's had in her life. And she went and followed every single training that I could offer. Wonderful. But in one of the seminars, she had this shirt on. She goes, "Here, look, look," and it said on it, "Never give up." You know, never give up. And of course, I always love those kinds of challenges. And what do I go say to everybody in the group? No, for Christ's sake, give up. Let it go. How long do you want to keep struggling and hanging on to something that does not work? And I understand the concept not to give up, but it doesn't mean hanging on to something that just isn't working anymore and keep trying over and over and over to get that on the rails. You know, no, you also need to know when to let go. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And we have a comment here from Therese. Most people see burnout recovery as something you do after you hit the wall. Why is that? Is it because we're oblivious? Is it because we're just in, when you look at the mindset fight or flight, we're constantly in fight mode, thinking that we can recoup, we can salvage whatever it is that is bringing us down. Why is it that for the most part, many of us always hit that wall first? And that's when we realize, like, all right, I'm burnt out. I need help.
It's true. I mean, but in this sense, the burnout is actually fantastic. Why? Because without it, you would have probably continued on the same path and leading to an extreme, situation like a heart attack or God knows what. And I've had a client call me from the hospital who had a heart attack. So yeah, we have the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and I call it life stress blueprint. Again, because of birth, we come into the world with stress. So our reptilian brain part is activated, that of the instinct to survive. So we're always in survival mode. So, and that's good. The fight flight response in moments of danger, right? And then you have the parasympathetic nervous system that'll bring us back in track and relax. The adrenaline pumping, the oxytocin is released, and we come back to a state of relaxation. But the point is, what am I always getting angry about? Road rage, angry when somebody says something I just don't like. When something isn't working the way I want, we get upset about absolutely nothing. And that fight, flight response is like always on. It's like,
Yes.
it's a nuisance. Will you get out of the way already? But it's because we were conditioned. Again, we were conditioned that way. They don't know any better because it's not something that they can conceive in the brain. It's a program like any computer program that's running 24/7 your whole life. And so the only way to stop them, and that's why I'm saying, hey, you want to take on a challenge, try and convince these people that think they strive under pressure that they're going the wrong way. So I'm like, carefully going, listen, would you consider maybe thinking that you might not be doing the right thing? Just consider it. Are you already feeling moments where you're like so exhausted that you just don't have enough energy the next day when you get up? They recognize the symptoms, but they don't know what to do about it. Because even if you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to take it easy, the program is telling you what to do. It's governing you.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
sorry, go ahead. I'll let you complete that.
that's why I love that part where I integrate conscious energy breathing. And why? Because the breath will literally release the imprinting at cellular level of that very program, the way you were programmed, the stress hormones at your birth where you didn't breathe properly, where you lost your natural breathing rhythm, the body to respond in a in the way it was meant to respond in moments of stress. Just take that the breath does the work, your body does the work, and not the mind interceding and curtailing the breath from doing, or the body from doing what it needs to do in the moments of stress. And so it's not something we can actually fix on a mental level. That's why the breath is so unbelievably powerful, because it will go and literally override the mind and get straight to where the program is still lodged in your body at cellular and muscular level.
Now, here's a thought. I don't want to undermine modern medicine, but how often does medicine get prescribed to address the symptoms, and people are put on stress and anxiety medication when perhaps they could do without that? You know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, also, I've also, in these 35 years, I've had so many clients, even family members and dear friends of mine that were put on medication. The medical establishment is just absolutely not equipped to deal with this. They're pushing drugs. They're dealing with symptoms. And again, that doesn't mean I'm against it. You have to use your head. If you need a relaxant, to temporarily bring you right into a more relaxed state, all right, so be it. But the danger is becoming dependent on it. And I've seen people go down on these prescription drugs. Yeah.
All right.
And not necessary, because if you've ever tried a breathing session, it brings you into that state of relaxation. The original name for this breathing technique or discipline was called rebirthing. Now, that name had a bit of a Christian, context, and lots of people misunderstood it, but it really only meant that after every single session, you feel like you were reborn. You're in such a state of relaxation and a state of bliss. You should have seen all these people, all these high techies, engineers lying there, and they were in total bliss. They were like, oh my God, I've never felt such silence, such pure connectedness to myself as ever before in my life.
That's wonderful. Let's continue. We're at the top of the hour. Have a few more questions if you're still good for time.
Absolutely.
Jennifer shares that, and this is going back to the question around on live events. Showing up online doesn't have to be another drain. It can actually be energizing when it aligns. And I totally agree. Now, the question for you is, she'd like to hear your take on how visibility and vitality can go hand in hand.
Well, they actually have to go hand in hand. Visibility is about life. I know all about this because I never felt visible. I thought I just didn't exist. I had that bottommost thought that I didn't exist, and literally people could walk by me and not see me. Literally, I'd be in a restaurant, everybody would get their food, and I'm like, "Where's my hamburger?" Right? And the waitress looks at me and goes, "Who are you?" I just had to laugh so loud. How my own thought was projected so strongly in the world that people were just like literally not seeing me. But vitality, yes, it's all about taking your space in the world, owning your body. We were blessed with this vehicle with which I can experience this three-dimensional holographic reality, albeit for such a short period of time. But my God, what a blessing to experience this. Look, I needed to do a lot of work to get to this point, to feel that I always felt restricted in my body. What am I doing? And very unhappy. But no, the truth is, when you embrace life, that's the clue. If you're in separation and you're not seen, not heard, not taken serious, if you're not making your mark on life, so vitality goes hand in hand with energy.
Well, Jennifer, if you're listening live or catching the replay, hope that that answers your question. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Let's bring up our next question. Such an important, timely conversation, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. We simply don't talk enough about this. So thanks for bringing. Ramona wants to thank you and for bringing this up and making this part of who you are in terms of the value you bring to your community. Recognizing early signs of stress and burnout is something that too many overlook. Completely agree. I deeply appreciate Robert's approach of blending self-awareness, sustainable practice, and real-world support strategies. We need more voices helping achievers reconnect with their energy, purpose, and well-being in an intentional, grounded way. So not so much a question here, but recognizing your value and your purpose for the community you serve. So kudos to you. Thank you for sharing that, Ramona.
Thank you, Ramona.
And we have, I'm going to try this. Sumda. I love the emphasis on resilient communication. I might be interested to explore how enhancing communication skills can also improve team dynamics. So here's a question. Have you seen an effective communication technique that practically resonates with your audience?
Yeah, I'm very much also about communication leadership. And we sort of touched on that a little before when we were talking about active listening, meaning, and seriously meaning, when somebody's talking, not to have any gibberish going on in my head, have the mind completely still so that I can truly absorb what somebody's trying to say. And only in those circumstances will I know that what they're saying is what they're really meaning to say, or if I'm interpreting it in the way that they're meaning it to say. Because we can just, language is just another means or a gap between two minds, which can create a lot of discord, right? So when we approach leadership and communication, we don't want to superimpose our ideas on reality anymore. We need to truly be still and genuinely be interested in what the other person has to say. That's true leadership. To have all your employees, and I work with many, many businesses in Germany, try and convince them to have their employees join in on decision making. Are you crazy? Them decide where we're going with the company? It's like, it doesn't mean that they're going to decide where they're going, but you're giving them the respect, right? And they feel that I would even suggest sell some shares of your company to your employees. Make them part of the whole. That's what I'm saying, change business culture completely. And everybody will thrive for the better.
Yeah.
Everybody will thrive. This is what we need to stop superimposing our ideas on what happens. Just like this conversation actually we're having right now, Americo, it's like between you and me, something else comes into existence because it's unforced, it's spontaneous, I call it the third force. And often we're third force blind. We don't even know that this other beautiful energy is created between two empty minds meeting. We're always imposing our ideas, and then we actually, not even knowing, limit our experience completely.
That
So
is beautiful.
I would invite everybody to try that, just to really empty yourself of any thought. And when you have the inclination to want to intercede somebody that's talking, just tell yourself to S up. Just shut up. Don't say anything. Force yourself just to be still. Just keep listening, and then think about what somebody said. And you might answer on a complete different note, completely unrelated to what somebody maybe said, because intuitively you might have caught something he was actually right, but you wouldn't have picked it up if you were just, again, oh, this guy doesn't understand what he's talking about, and blah 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 blah, and filling it all in and creating this disagreement.
Yeah, it's so important. I can't say enough when it comes to improving team dynamics. We hear others talk about know your audience, and it's no different in a team environment. Understand that people listen, consume, digest, interpret your message differently at different rates. We all learn differently, but most of the time, improving team dynamics, talk with your team and not talk at your team. Right. So you talk about listening, being important, but it's also, and you also touched on respect, right? I love the fact, and I've tried it myself in the past, bringing those who are frontline employees who are actually the backbone of an organization, bring them into the discussion. Exactly. And they will thank you for it. I've had, many times, like, we've never been asked this before. It's like, well, I'm glad that I'm the first to ask for your opinion, because I value your opinion. As your leader, it's important for me to not only guide you, but have a good understanding as to where you see things from a different lens, and respect your opinion and make that opinion part of the decision. So all points kind of touch on what you mentioned: listen, respect, and just simply be aware and understand your audience.
Yeah. And don't try and be right, and always be willing to be wrong.
And believe me, I've been wrong many a times, and it's okay to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
And when you are wrong, there will be someone to pick you up, and allow them to pick you up, get you back on your feet, and get you back in the right lane. Because, if you're not failing, you're not learning, and you're not moving forward and making progress.
Right. And the truth is, when, that's where the vulnerability comes into play. When you're willing to be wrong, we're afraid of the reaction or negative reaction, but what really happens is there's so much support and so much understanding, and they all come and thank you for your vulnerability and sharing wherever, whatever was going on for you. Most people are like, oh, I can't share this with my boss. I can't cry in front of, I'm always like, well, why not? Why not? What do you think is going to happen if you do? Right? Nothing's going to happen, but we fear the worst.
Yeah, and it's sometimes those fears and those thoughts that hold us back from being our best selves and bringing our best selves forward. This has been a fantastic conversation. I can't thank you enough for joining me for this last hour and a bit. We had some great questions that were dropped in the comments. We have a wonderful audience who spent part of their day, wherever it is that they find themselves, morning, day, afternoon, and evening, spending some time with us. those who are joining and will be part of the replay, feel free, drop those questions. We'll continue to engage in this conversation. Robert, I want to let's bring your image up again, and why don't you share with our community where people can find you, where people can reach out and get a hold of you.
The website, manalifesource.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, Robert Tettero, Facebook. You'll find me under the same name. Yeah. And reach out if you have any questions at all. I'm always available.
Listen, it was an absolute pleasure sharing my stage with you. I want to thank those of you who stuck around. You'll hear me often say it's time to be seen, be heard, and be remembered. Robert, you have some valuable services, support that will help people feel comfortable in themselves to allow them to be seen, heard, and remembered. Anyone who enjoyed this experience, this live streaming experience, and has questions on how can you do this for your community, I'm open to coaching and producing live stream experiences for others. Let's answer whatever questions you might have. I'm open to connecting. I too am very, very active on LinkedIn, but can also be found on YouTube. This will be replayed on YouTube, and going to write some robust blog posts from today's conversation, and members who are not following me on Substack can do so, and see how much content this conversation will open up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Robert. I'm going to close the room. Have a great rest of your